right, sounds like we good. Sounds like we in there. All right. All right, man. It's been a minute. It has been a long minute, as a matter of fact. But not only are we back streaming, we're streaming Dandy. We haven't streamed in a while. We're streaming a StarDock Streamcast. Live for everybody here on Twitch. Of course, obviously, it'll be uploaded on the YouTube. But, yeah, man. Hope everybody's doing good in this new year. It's 2024, January 2024. Hope everybody's gotten off to a nice start. Hope everything's looking promising for all prospects here in the coming new year. I can tell you right now, everything on my side looking up quite a bit more. I know I've been a little MIA, especially since my vacation overseas before the holiday season, as far as streaming is concerned, as far as gaming in general has been concerned. But I can tell you right now, I will definitely be trying to appear a lot more often in general going forward. But as far as Mortal Kombat 1 is concerned, I can pretty much tell you right now that, oh yeah, the game is in... oh yeah, it's in trouble. And it's in trouble for a lot of the ways that I've always said that NetherRealm would not be able to really fix, especially considering the fact that they are dead underneath WB's thumb, and there is only so much creative liberty that they can do even on their own IPs right now. But by the same stretch of the imagination, the product that they are putting out on shelves right now for the community to enjoy, whether it be from a casual or from a competitive standpoint, I can pretty much tell you it's just not the guy. It's not the product, if you will. I mean, right now, I can tell you, based on everything that's happened over the course of the game's first few months of life, that it's not what's going to be carrying the community forward, regardless of the finishing out of this season's DLC. This season's DLC isn't even finished, and given what I've seen from a lot of folks, myself included, as far as what they've got in the chamber, and nobody's really excited for what's coming. I mean, obviously, you know, the Ermac community can't wait a little bit for Ermac, although they're not exactly happy with the way the game even functions right now. But yeah, in general, the game is just not in a good spot right now, and a lot of the numbers on vast different platforms where you can really gauge a lot of this really reflect that reality on a pretty unfortunate scale as far as NetherRealm is concerned. And you can take a look at the numbers of entries over at tournaments like East Coast Throwdown, Ultimate Fighting Arena, and really just see that the amount of folks that actually do compete in the game right now, the amount of folks that have actually gone out to support the game offline is really a big drop off from what you'd expect from a game that had as much hype behind it on release as MK1 did, and to see it not even getting good numbers domestically, much less, of course, overseas, that really brings home just how much NRS is really, and WB and all of them have really dropped the ball with how this game was developed over the last several years. And that's the interesting part about it all, is the fact that they took the longest in developing this game, as they have in any other IP that they've ever had in development before in this NetherRealm Studios era of development. And yet, a lot of the same mistakes that have been prevalent in past games, whether they be hitbox quirks, inexplicable quality control errors, inexplicable hitbox inconsistencies, that have been plaguing NRS games for quite a long time still being a problem now. It is, and along with the way that they've gone back in content, I mean, as far as content in Mortal Kombat 1 is concerned, along with the means and methods available to accrue that content or acquire that content, if you will, they've really added a lot of steps to that process that by all rights should not be as tedious as they are for folks that paid top dollar to get the game. If you paid the premium pricing to get the game, and you still have to pay $10 for a skin, there's a problem. In the great scheme of things, the business model of Mortal Kombat 1 has a good amount of the issues that people have with Mortal Kombat 1. That's really been what's generated a lot of the issues, and it just goes to show that when you have to do something as absurd as pay that much money for cosmetics in a game that you've already paid a good amount of bones for in the first place, I mean, there's an issue. That just goes to show that making money was the ultimate priority behind the game's launch rather than actually fine-tuning and really giving out the best kind of quality of product that you could from the aspect of the game that really should have mattered the most, and that was gameplay. And now, we can go all day and say, WB's pulling the strings, NetherRealm, didn't have much of a chance, or they were underneath such and such's thumb, all that good stuff, yada, 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 yada. But in the great scheme of things, NetherRealm had a long time to develop this game into something that was worth playing and that had the ability to really captivate the whole entire FGC in ways that Mortal Kombat 11 should have, as it was coming off the heels of Mortal Kombat X's unbelievable success. And that game still continues to be prevalent to this day in the sense that folks can still pick up and play that game to this day. But unfortunately, just like its predecessor in MK11, Mortal Kombat 1 has gone backwards in a lot of different areas that really hinder the fact that, as far as gameplay is concerned, it's not my kind of gameplay, but once again, I digress. It overshadows the improvements that might be shown in the gameplay from a competitive or even a casual point of view. And just in general, that's enough to turn away a lot of folks that could have possibly given this game a very good run over the course of its lifetime from the very start. The business practices. I mean, I saw it in the past with Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Street Fighter Cross Tekken, I don't know, I'm showing my age a little bit right now, but with Street Fighter Cross Tekken, it released way back in 2012. 2011, 2012. Yeah, you go back during that time, that's when that game was prevalent. Of course, when Yoshinori Ono and Katsuhiro Harada had that famous crossover. And in development, everybody was really hyped seeing the way the gameplay worked. It was a very modified way of how Street Fighter 4 did its job. And it still felt like Street Fighter, but it felt like they did add a lot of elements of Tekken in the game, and everybody was extremely hyped for that, especially with the way that they went off of Tekken Tag's elements of, obviously, you kill a character, obviously you taking the round, and that good stuff. Where things started going awry was when they started adding artificial modifiers in the game, like the gems. Of course, they became a core aspect of the game, and yeah, at certain times when it came to DLC, you had to buy gem packs, and then that's when, of course, the pay to win stigma really started inserting itself to an extent within fighting games. or at least within that particular realm of fighting games. And then what also came to be as far as bad business practices went on Street Fighter Cross Tekken was that the characters that they had intended on releasing as DLC were actually already in the game when you got the game at launch. They were just all behind a paywall at the time, and until the time came where you could actually get through that paywall by paying for the DLC when they became available, or when the time frame was available to do so. Only then would the paywall be lifted and you could actually have access to those characters. But it was already sifted through in the early goings of that game's life by way of its code, and of course all the code freaks out there that love to go in there and become data mongers and whatnot. They found out, of course, that the characters were already there in the base game's code, regardless of whether or not you paid for a season pass, had premium release, or whatever the case may have been, or even if the pay date was there. The characters were already there. They were just behind the paywall at the time, and that really put a lot of very, very, very bad press on that game that really doomed a lot of its life. Even though, in spite of the gems and what have you, and in spite of the other balance practices that were put in action in that game, it was still a way for that game to get doomed, and that's exactly what happened. And that's also why Harada, in spite of the fact that he had that close friendship with Yoshinori Ono, and Namco and Capcom had that close networking relationship, with all of that was going on at the time, why Harada did not think it was a worthwhile venture to continue on with the Tekken Cross Street Fighter half of it, because if you remember, that was exactly what was supposed to have come out of that whole deal. Street Fighter Cross Tekken, Tekken Cross Street Fighter, and we were supposed to get the best of both worlds. It was supposed to have been Tekken on a Street Fighter, or Tekken and Street Fighter on a Tekken-based system that had some elements of Street Fighter and what have you, and that never came to be. I mean, Harada's yet to officially say that it's dead, but by the same stretch, we saw assets that they implied in other games that actually did have elements of what they were going to use for Street Fighter characters. Like, for example, Fahkumram in Tekken 7 was actually supposed to be Sagat's model, from what I heard. So, yeah, take that for what you will. Why is that so prevalent in me bringing everything up, and how does it correlate to what MK1 is concerned? Well, Mortal Kombat 1 is unfortunately going down the same path of not learning from those mistakes, where certain business practices combined with charging your fan base top dollar for a game that by all rights still is not even close to being considered a finished product on release. Even now, I'd consider that game a glorified beta in Mortal Kombat 1. It leaves a very bad taste in people's mouths, and it's something that, when you combine the fact that they've not exactly learned from a lot of their past mistakes on why their games are as flawed as they are from a competitive and casual standpoint, along with the fact that they've now committed these fouls in terms of business practices by under whomever's influence you might want to think that they're under, WB's, their own, whatever the case, it doesn't matter. It's the perfect storm for disaster, in spite of how many titles they've sold due to their namesake, due to the fact that they are selling the brand that is Mortal Kombat. And I mean, normally whenever Mortal Kombat releases, it gets all the awards possible, and of course they got one award that a lot of folks really did not think was justified in one of the previous award shows that happened, I think, in November this past year. But of course in December, the big one, the Video Game Awards, Street Fighter 6 actually wound up getting the fighting game of the year. And everybody said, myself included, that was the right choice. The way that Street Fighter implemented so many fan wish list items into that game that made the quality of life of that game so much better now than what it would have been in generations past. I mean, they leveled the game up in a lot of ways that everybody else is taking inspiration from now. And then Tekken is raising the bar even more so when they go ahead and release Tekken 8 later on this month. And the hype around that game's release, because they've taken a lot of course, they probably already had it under development at the same time that Capcom was finishing up on Street Fighter 6. But a lot of the same net play developments there, along with the fact that, yeah, that you can actually go in the lab and you're going to have a lot more tools at your disposal in the lab in Tekken than ever. The ability to replay ghost data and actually practice with that, I mean, good Lord, nothing like that exists in Mortal Kombat 1. Mortal Kombat 1, compared to the efforts that have been put in by their competitors, is, in comparison, a mailed-in effort. Because a lot of the fixes and a lot of the different ways that they're having to basically scramble to add in the game at a later time or find a way to implement in the game because it wasn't something that they thought of, they're really behind the 8 ball on this. And they're also, finally starting to get a little bit of backlash from the MK community, the NRS community, on just how badly they've really stayed stagnant and failed to improve upon a product from a quality of life standpoint that really needed to have a bounce back title in order to get away from how badly that job was done in MK11. And case in point, it goes beyond obviously the training mode and even the tutorial mode, both of which are, even the tutorial mode, both of which are steps down compared to what's been in Mortal Kombat games in the past. And even then, it was only adequate for its time as far as training mode or even the tutorials were concerned. MK11, when they had that tutorial, yeah, it was a good tutorial. The tutorial in Mortal Kombat 1, adequate. But then you get into the lab and the features you have at your disposal in practice mode are an absolute embarrassment compared to the features, ease of access, and quality of life you've got in their competitors' titles, where it's not a hassle to record certain situations, where it's not a hassle getting to the opportunity to lab certain situations, where it's not a hassle like pulling teeth at all in order to get matches while you're labbing. And that's another thing. How at this point, because I'm about to transition into online quality of life, and there's a lot to dive into on that one, that the quality of life that they have in their game, where I can't even go in training mode while I'm waiting for matches, where I have the filters, where I can set my criterias from training mode as I'm warming up to get ready to play. I don't have that option in Mortal Kombat. They've never put those options in their game unless you're in a King of the Hill where you can actually go into a practice mode as you're waiting for a match while you're in the King of the Hill lobby ladder. All right, so it's good that you've got that option there, and it's good that you've got obviously the AFK option, so that in case you're in the event that you're hosting the event and you don't want to get in the way of just getting somebody to just beat up on a dummy character like we do in MKX, because that quality of life feature was never put in MKX. You can just stay back and just watch the matches and organize your event from that standpoint, yada, yada, yada. We get it. But when it comes to the rank feature, when it comes to the ability to set the criteria for a good rank system, and yeah, Combat League, yeah, is where the online experience really just takes so many L's, because they recently patched it to where you had the Wi-Fi filter now. You can choose when you want to go ahead and say absolutely not to somebody whose connection's either not up to par or the type of connection that they're on, being a Wi-Fi warrior, is definitely not up to par, because obviously we get what happens when it comes to Wi-Fi. But before that, I took several painstaking months before that quality of life filter could be put in the game. You're talking about something that should have been in the game from the start as an advancement from the fact that Mortal Kombat X and Mortal Kombat 11 did not have that feature. And then obviously Injustice 2 didn't have that feature either. You didn't have that, and you were stuck playing folks whose connections were either going to drag you to the depths, i.e. you're scuba diving as far as the connection is concerned, or you found yourself having no choice but to play people that were on Wi-Fi, because according to the game and its ping filter, the ping was good enough for the connection to be locked in place and for you to have to go through an entire ranked set in order to dispatch your opponent before you don't have to deal with that anymore. And people were coming up with tactics, actual lag tactics, on how they could use their nasty connections to their advantage, which is not it's not in the spirit of the game. In the spirit of the game, you're wanting to play with as little outside interference as possible, i.e. the best way to play the game with that spirit of competition in mind is offline, arcade style, side by side or face to face, head to head, whatever the way you want to put it. Fact of the matter is, you're talking about the fact that they waited until months after the game got released and hundreds of thousands of pleas were finally heard and heeded that they needed to adjust the quality of life of the game. And the game's net play has taken so many L's, and one of the biggest L's that it took over the course of this, not just within Combat League and the lack of a wire filter, region filter, or any kind of a ping filter, whatever the case may be, and then of course obviously a rank filter, because some folks some folks would either just get the worst luck of the draw, where you're always facing people that are under your rank and you had nothing to gain, but your opponent had everything to gain and you had everything to lose. And, well, you would find yourself, in those kinds of battles more often than not, with the way that the game sifts through your rank qualifications. And, you would probably get quite a few of those matches in a row. It happened to me, but at the same time, compared to the other issues, that's an issue to bring up for another day. All right, that was lower on the totem pole, total back burner deal, and yeah, it's something worth noting. But by the same stretch, being able to set the criteria on the rank system whilst you are able to get warmed up and ready to play the game by way of practice mode, the fact that you don't have that option in this game, a game developed in 2023 or released in 2023, and here we are in 2024, that's a sign of a company that's not taking anywhere near as much feedback into account as they should have in development. And having as many tournament players as they did on development in the QA QC department, that's an L in every single which way on NRS's side. WB and all of that be damned, NRS should have taken all that into account in the first place. But then you go into the fact that there was no crossplay. How in the world are you releasing a game in 2023 after you had a game in MK11 that had crossplay features in beta throughout the course of the entire game's lifetime? How do you not have crossplay as a base feature in this game? How do you fail that miserably? The game, I just don't know if you can really just say that they were just negligent or whatever the case may have been. And this is the part where I just say might not have been a matter of negligence, but by the same, and I'm not making excuses for NRS. They're the last ones I'm gonna make excuses for, because at this point they've demonstrated they have no excuses. They had years to get this game right for release, and they have failed in ways that honestly is now starting to finally cost them their fan base, and maybe that's finally going to get them to wake up and make some changes that are going to definitely need to be made for the future. But I will say this game feels like it was put on shelves way too soon. And I said it back when the demo was out. I said it back also when the release happened. You know, the game was just way too unpolished from every single standpoint. Gameplay, the cameo mechanics, the quality of life when it came to learning the game, the quality of life when it came to getting content, the quality of life when it came to online play, the quality of life when it came to the servers themselves, which is still a prevalent issue to this very moment, with the desync issue that is still going on right now. In spite of how many times the folks that play this game the most have given NRS hell for it on social media, and just like throughout the course of Mortal Kombat 11's entire lifetime, the communication with the community from a casual or competitive standpoint is just not there. Or it's very much one-sided, with the community communicating with NRS, and NRS not giving us any of the feedback we deserve to have. And yes, as entitled as that's going to sound, we deserve to have feedback from NRS on a lot of these issues, on a better frequency than we are, because you're talking about a title that wasn't finished, that was so flawed upon release, that could be considered an alpha stage product on release, a glorified alpha, because at this point I'd say the game right now is in glorified beta stage. All right, for them to not have any kind of communication with the community on the issues that we're bringing up to them ad nauseum in the midst of them trying to organize this whole pro competition nonsense. And I'm going to get into that. The whole pro comp. I'm going to get into that. That's just not acceptable, man. That's just not acceptable. At this point, it's starting to get to a stage where you have to start asking them the really hard questions. And even the biggest diehards, the biggest shills, if you will, or whatever you want to call them, even they're starting to finally raise some eyebrows, turn around, ask some questions on whether or not NRS is actually competent at what's going on. Okay? And it's now getting to a very big standpoint on, or no, rather, it's starting to get to a flashpoint. A flashpoint, as I have no idea why that happened. Hold on. Sorry there. The communication's just not been there for years. Some people are trying to excuse them by saying, oh, COVID disrupted a lot of NRS's momentum. Oh, COVID stopped a lot of people from traveling. Oh, COVID has come and gone. All right, enough with the nonsensical excuses, all right? If you're going to support the game, support the game. COVID has come and gone. People have been traveling and retraveling for events now over the course of the last several years. People's travel schedules should now be back on track if they planned on supporting, if they were going to support in the first place. There are no excuses anymore. Hell, and ever since then, I've organized a Mortal Kombat tournament for MKX at EVO, gone to Combo Record, done my thing there, and all that good stuff on my account. And then, of course, I went on over to my first overseas travels this past holiday season. COVID is not an excuse anymore, folks. It's not an excuse. There are no excuses. You either have your stuff together at this given stage of the game or you don't. It's as simple as that, and NRS has made it very vehemently clear they don't have their stuff together when it comes to giving the community feedback that we deserve on the game that we spent a lot of hard-earned money for. And if you spent hard-earned money on a product, you expect that product to be absolutely done, absolutely worth the expenditure, worth the purchase. You expect that product to actually behave as quality-like as the product you were advertised you were getting by making the investment in the first place. When the product does not actually perform like you were told it would as far as your money being worth it, yeah, you deserve to ask some questions on what's going on and how in the world the people that made that product you invested that money in are going to fix it. That's common sense. That is very much common sense, folks. And overall, you're talking about a company that has been making games competitively now for 14, 13 years. All right, Mortal Kombat 9 released back in 2011. All right, it released way back in April 2011. And it was the start of them basically wanting to make not only a game that appealed to the casual masses that everybody had fun with, enjoyed the story mode, enjoyed the lore. That was the game in which they said that they also wanted to really start paying attention to the competitive community, because the competitive community for these guys, it's a very niche market. It's a very small minority, obviously. But at the same time, the competitive market is where a lot of the quality control happens. A lot of the QA happens. And it's a lot where you can get free advertisement of your game, of your product on a massive scale, to where folks can really see how far your game can be taken if the limits were pushed. All developers love the competitive community. Say what you want about the Nintendo community on Smash, but I'm not going there. All right, I'm not going there. I'm going to keep it directly on this realm of things. Thank you. The developers love the competitive communities because of the way we help them reshape their products. You think Tekken hasn't taken gobs of data from the competitive community on how to make their product as ironclad as it's become over the course of the last 2 decades? I mean, there's a reason why Tekken is the running standard, not only with the way they develop their games, but also, for that matter, the way they've structured their Tekken World Tour esports tournament, which is actually having its finals, I believe, this weekend for Tekken 7, and Tekken 7's great send-off before Tekken 8 finally releases. And Tekken 7, let's take that game as a little bit of a case study. Tekken 7 was a game that was developed for years and years and years as a response to the absolute floundering that was Tekken Tag Tournament 2. It wouldn't surprise me if Tekken Tag Tournament 3 never gets made. It wouldn't surprise me if Tekken Tag Tournament 2 is the last time they ever venture into the tag realm. Okay, and especially after the whole deal with Street Fighter Cross Tekken, with the way that game was a business failure. I mean, obviously it's become a cult classic for a lot of folks, but at the same time, in terms of business, and Namco Bandai, that is a big business entity right there that loves to win and loves to put out a quality product on the shelves every single time they develop one. They knew how to learn from their mistakes, and they put all of their eggs in Tekken 7's basket. They knew that title couldn't fail, because if that title failed, Tekken was done. They knew this. That's why Tekken 7 was the bun in the oven for as long as it was throughout 2014, 2015, 2016. They took that game out to events for years. And that was the only way people could test it or even compete in it. And people competed in that game for years. leading up to its eventual console, PC, and overall release in 2017, summer 2017. And they even took an extra month to develop the game for the console release and for the widespread release, because there was an issue with Akuma's fireballs, from what I understand, being coded for the overall release for summer of that year, or for a little bit later spring, early summer that year, before they finally released it in June of 2017. All those years of competitive community's feedback going into the pre-development of that game before it launched officially wound up culminating in that game being the standard that absolutely shaped the modern day FGC in terms of, when I say modern day FGC, I'm talking about from 2017's line of games up until this point, to the point where that game was the game where every single developer should have been taking their notes. Because every single year Tekken was on the official docket, Tekken 7 was on the official docket, especially for Evo. It got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. You look at the Tekken World Tours, the Tekken World Finals that happened all the way from 2017 up to this year, completely different beasts. It got better and better and better and better and better. Tekken had a brilliant foundation to build off of when they released that game, because they invested in their competitive community to be able to put as much hardcore gameplay into that game pre-release that they could, encourage them to travel on out and play that game competitively so that they could have the most ironclad starting foundation of a game that you could have asked for when it finally hit the shelves. And that's why Tekken 7, sales-wise, from what I understand, is become one of the most successful Tekkens, and it's probably the most important Tekken, alongside obviously Tekken 1 and Tekken 3, to ever exist. And why they got a brilliant launch pad into the ideas that they could take into Tekken 8, which of course they've built upon what they did in Tekken 7, put it in Tekken 8, only with a few modified ways of actually having the system done. And you're still talking about a game that's still bringing brilliant quality to the entire Tekken community. And as things stand right now, to give you an idea of how much people believe in the quality of that game after the demos have been done over the last couple of months, as far as Tekken is concerned, you look at Combo Breaker. It was literally posted on Twitter earlier today. It was posted on Twitter earlier today by Rick, the Hado. Tekken 8 is sitting right now, not even released officially on shelves right now, and it is sitting at number 2. I mean, you can't make this up. Tekken is so strong right now competitively because that community travels. That international community absolutely supports that game. The devs and the Tekken World Tour have given them a reason to support that game, and it's only gotten better ever since Tekken realized it was make or break, and that they could not have gaffes in development or any major stupid painstaking transitions from pre-release into the console release kinds of gaffes that held back the quality of what they were cooking. And it turned out to be a treat that everyone enjoys to this day, because as things stand right now, as far as Combo Breaker 2024 is concerned, Tekken 8, which hasn't even released yet, is sitting number 2 behind Street Fighter 6 in terms of entries. And keep in mind, Combo Breaker is in Chicago, which is NRS's backyard. Literally, NRS, home, bred, made in Chicago, Illinois. Combo Breaker right there in Chicago, Illinois. And yet NRS is what a lot of the folks that still don't find it within themselves to criticize the NetherRealm Studios product in MK1. MK1 has been released for over 120 days. It's not even in the top 8 of most attended game, or most signed up for game, most registered game in Combo Breaker's lineup as a main game as things stand now. As things stand now, MK1 is not even in the top 8. No mention. As things stand right now, it is Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8, Grand Blue Versus, Guilty Gear Strive, Under Night, Rev 2, that's Guilty Gear Rev 2, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and KOF 15. All right, so you talk about another game that's managed to find a way to actually improve upon what it was from its previous iteration. Grand Blue, I've never played Grand Blue before, but I gotta say this right now. Bravo to that team, because from what I understand, their community is absolutely satisfied. They're feasting right now on the improvements that were taken from the game, that for the previous Grand Blue game, which unfortunately didn't get a very fair shake at offline, because it got released during the course of the pandemic. COVID literally killed a lot of the momentum that the first Grand Blue really could have built as an offline presence. But in spite of that, that developer still managed to make improvements upon that product and put out a whole sequel to that product that community's bought into immensely, that was worth buying into on a big scale, to the point to where Grand Blue, as things stand right now, is number 3 on Combo Breaker's registration list in terms of numbers. Once again, bravo. And according to what Rick posted on Twitter, 2 of the games, which are Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8, because they're the top 2 games that are registered for at this moment, are over 300. All right, and this is just after the first week of registrations. This is the first week of registration right now, guys. 7 games are over 100, which means as of right now, and because as you've heard the top 8 right now, KOF 15 is number 8 right now, and apparently it's the only game in that top 8 that hasn't broken triple digits just yet. But in NRS's backyard, for an event that is considered a pro comp event, because like I said, that's going to be the next subject I'm going to talk about, it is not even past triple digits. I mean, this is Combo Breaker, folks. This is Combo Breaker. Like, what? This is Combo Breaker. Like, you have got to be kidding me. This is Combo Breaker. Like, how in the world do you not take the hint that you failed? I don't get it.
I give you no respect, man. No respect.
I mean, goodness gracious, man. And to think you still have people that defend this game. You still have people that tried defending my posts against all of this earlier today, trying to say that, you know, Mortal Kombat games are notorious for having people sign up for the tournament late. Well, here's the issue. Here's the issue with that line of thinking, man. If the game was worth a damn, if the game was Mortal Kombat X levels of good, do you really think, and on top of that, if the game was Mortal Kombat X levels of good, and Mortal Kombat X had a pro competition level circuit, okay? Let's take this back a little while back. So Mortal Kombat X had ESL, which to this day still stands as the greatest esports venture Mortal Kombat's ever experienced, next to the MLG era that MK9 had. All right? And then you could throw Wii Play up there as well for what MK11 had. My feelings on MK11 be damned. That Wii Play setup looked very nice, to say the least, but back to the point. Mortal Kombat X, there was no waiting for signing up for events in that game. Everybody knew they wanted to go. Everybody went. Everybody signed up for what they wanted to sign up for, and it was all streamlined and blow and go. For the longest time, every event was over 100 signups minimum, at the very bare minimum, and that's putting the bar low, because for the 2 years that game was at Evo, it got stronger. Or I take that back. It was over 1,000 entrants the first year, and it was at 890 entrants the second year, which is still damn good. It deserved the third year and beyond, because obviously the 2016 rendition of the game, that's the final patch that game is still left on up to now. It never got a main stage Evo year, because that was the year that 2017, that same year that Tekken came out officially on console, that Injustice 2 came out, and you know how NRS player, the community, is very terrible when it comes to supporting multiple games and multiple IPs at once. Meanwhile, the anime community does that junk with ease with the amount of games that they're feasting on right now. Case in point, look at Combo Breaker. Guilty Gear Strive and Guilty Gear Rev 2 are on that top 8 registered games list. Say what you want about the anime community, they support their shit. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. If anything, the NRS scene could learn a lot from them. But back to the point. There's no excuse for a game that's not even 130 days old after release, and that was made in the very spot that this major tournament, this Grand Slam level event, is going to be held, as it always is, in their backyard of Chicago, Illinois, should not be in the top 8 right off the rip of the signups being available for that event. There is no excuse. There is no excuse. If anything, that's an indictment of just how irrelevant everything about the game is, from a gameplay and from a competition standpoint. Which, let's get into it. Let's go ahead and get into the Pro Comp. So, the way the Pro Comp was even organized from the start, you've got the fact that they literally levied the Pro Comp on everybody just out of nowhere. The game dropped, ECT right around the corner, and you're talking about the fact that so many people were on the fence of going to ECT, and ECT, from what I understand, didn't have on-site signups. I don't think they had on-site signups. I would love to be fact-checked on that. I'm just going off of what I think I remember, but somebody fact-check me on that in the comments or whatever the case may be. But I digress. From what I remember, there was not really much of an opportunity to change your mind deep into the process of ECT approaching last fall. All right, and then out of nowhere, 2 weeks before ECT is getting set to go down, and ECT didn't have much of a window to keep people entertained with signups, WB and NRS announced that the Pro Competition, they just throw it up on Twitter, just throw it up, no trailer, no lead up troll announcement from Boone or nothing. Nothing gives us any hint that it's on its way. I mean, people insinuated that it could possibly be on the way from the community standpoint, in that, oh, a brand new game's coming out, they must be coming out with a new Pro Competition. They might have a Pro Competition or something like that. But obviously with the game releasing, not a peep was made about any kind of incentives towards the competitive community. However, what winds up happening is the Pro Comp just gets thrown out in everybody's faces, and that ECT would be the first event of the Pro Comp.
That's fucking illegal.
Like, bro, are you serious? How are you going to drop a whole circuit on everybody that's an international worldwide circuit, knowing full well your community is worldwide? You got players in Australia, you got players in Southeast Asia, you've got players in the CIS region of the world, i.e. Russia and whatnot, you've got players in the Middle East, you've got players in Europe, you've got players in Africa, you've got players in Latin America, obviously you've got players all over the continental US, Canada. What the hell? And here's the thing, that puts a lot of the folks that possibly would have had the opportunity to travel on the back burner in a huge way in terms of if they would want to compete and qualify in the Pro Series, by essentially getting them to miss an event, because last minute arrangements in order to travel internationally across the pond or whatever the case may be, that junk's not cheap. And it's not easy to arrange, especially if you're coming from countries that require visas to get into the United States or over into France or wherever. But in this case, we're talking USA because we're talking East Coast Throwdown. I mean, I've seen kids procrastinate on papers a lot less than what I saw NRS and WB pull when they announced that Pro Comp. And if that wasn't trifling enough, then you get to the real insulting bit of information, in that the payout for the Pro Comp, or even that matter for the events themselves, because we saw just what kind of shape MK11 was in when the game was over. I mean, the game really should never have seen another EVO after 2019 with the way that it fell off a cliff, and it wasn't going to see another EVO after 2019 if it wasn't for COVID, and if it wasn't for the fact that amongst all the games at that time, it had the best net code, and that was what got it into the EVO MK Online tournament that they had back then for those online EVO medals until things came back in 2021. I digress on that, but where I'm going with this is, you've got folks that travel for your games, and you literally just put them behind the 8 ball in a huge way if they wanted to come on over here. And unfortunately, even if they did, and here's where I was going with that, even if they did, it wouldn't have, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze in the first place. Even with Pro Comp support, because with the Pro Comp, there's no such thing as a lucrative prize pool in this circuit. There's nothing. You got a $250,000 prize pool that's being dedicated to the finals. Aside from that, there's nothing. You had folks, the Twins, when they were winning EVO this past year, not this, the year in 2022, not in 2023 when Ninja Killer took the dub, but in 2022 when the Twins were 1-2, the payout they got from doing all that didn't even cover their travel expenses. Because, of course, at that point, NRS, WB, they weren't investing in MK11 anymore, and they did not even want to think about taking it upon themselves to fix the amount of issues that MK11 really and truly had all the way from the ground up. They didn't want to do it. And with Mortal Kombat 1, the way they've got this prize pot, and let me go ahead and read out how I saw that dispersal. All right, let me read that out. First place, you got $30,000. Second place, you got $15,000. Third place, you got $10,000. Fourth place, you got $8,000. Fifth place, 2 players are going to have $5,000 apiece. Seventh place, you're going to have $2,500 apiece. Ninth place, you're going to have $1,500 for 4 players. You're going to have 4 players in 13th place that are going to be splitting $1,000 each. And then 17th place, you're going to have $500 being split amongst 4 players. So, and that's for the $100,000 that's going to be dispersed out through Final Combat. The rest was going to be dispersed amongst all the events that were going to be sanctioned by the Pro Kompetition. All right, which basically means you got a chunk of the $250,000 prize pot for the Pro Comp being dispersed in the finals with that $100,000. $150,000 on the other hand going to be dispersed elsewhere peppered around the other tournaments. Which basically means, compared to their contemporaries over at Namco Bandai with the Tekken World Tour, and compared especially to the Capcom Pro Tour, which, speaking of, let me go ahead and read out that prize distribution on the Capcom Pro Tour with Street Fighter 6. If you win the finals in Street Fighter 6, you're getting $1 million. Boom. Seven figures before taxes, depending on where you live and depending on how heavily you're getting taxed. Obviously, you're not going to be seeing all 1 million of that. Obviously, you're not going to see all 1 million of that. But at the same time, let's be honest about something. You're going to be very happy with what you get coming out of that because it's going to be life-changing regardless. All right, second place, $300,000. Third place, $200,000. Fourth place, $100,000, i.e. the very figure that we were literally discussing that makes up the entire prize pool for Final Combat in Mortal Kombat 1. But let's keep going. Fifth and sixth place is going to be splitting $10,000 apiece, and seventh and eighth place are going to be splitting $7,000 apiece. Let that sink in, folks. If you get 7th and 8th place in the Capcom Pro Tour, I mean, you're literally making up what the 4th players that are going to be splitting 9th place money. You're literally making more than those 4 players combined. It's amazing, isn't it? There is no investment from NRS or WB into the competitive community. What is making folks realize is that there is no investment coming from those guys anytime soon. The Esports Dream from the NRS side of things, from the WB side of things, is dead. It's gone. Yeah, you heard me mention a moment ago all of the exploits behind Mortal Kombat X with where it was going from an esports standpoint with all the things we had back then. Back then, you also had teams. You know, you had the likes of Noble, Echo Fox, and, you know, all things considered with all of those teams and what happened to them. You had Panda Global. You had BXA. You had a myriad of different teams at the time that could help players get to where they wanted to go and actually sponsored us to a degree to get to the point when we competed. We had a bit of the expense taken care of and taken off of our plate, and we could just focus on the game with, even though little return came back to those teams and eventually led to a lot of them folding, unfortunately. But here, where I'm going with this is, there was an incentive for players to really put their names out there, put themselves out there to travel and get on out there and compete and become the best in the game. Yes, back in the days, in Mortal Kombat 9, Injustice 1, all that, folks played for pride. Street Fighter 4, Super Street Fighter 4, Tekken 6, all that good stuff. People played for pride. Yes. It's expensive, but it was expensive then to travel. It's expensive now to travel. Nothing's changed. Inflation, all that good stuff. Nothing's changed that fact of life. It's a tough deal to travel, and that's just what it is. However, in the esports realm of all of it, and when the money was there for all the means and methods elsewhere to be met, to where you didn't have to think about that nearly as much as you would have to think about who you're taking on in the tournament bracket, it was a different time then compared to now. Now you're starting to see who the real Joneses are in the whole esports space, who was able to create a model that was able to sustain itself over time, to where the players, if they wanted to focus on their own content whilst competing instead of just solely focusing on their own content to just run up their bag and make it worth it on their own dime. Now you're starting to see just which side of the FGC is able to make something like that work to a certain degree, and which side of the FGC is really going to have to read the tea leaves and understand that Dream's not there anymore. I mean, I realized that this was coming years ago. I saw it coming years ago. I knew that NRS and WB were not going to want to invest the kinds of money into the competitive community like what you see in Street Fighter and Tekken, and that's the reason why Street Fighter and Tekken, from a competitive standpoint, from a quality of game standpoint, are eclipsing Mortal Kombat in a monstrous way to this day, in spite of the fact that Mortal Kombat eclipsed Tekken as the most well-sold fighting game franchise in the world. Yes, they overtook them in terms of sales, but in terms of, building a competitive community, or in terms of competitive community buying into your product and actually showing your product was worth the investment of getting good at putting those painstaking hours, having some of the best players in the world go out and support your product on the fly, either on their own dime or being supported by teams that have bought into your product and the promotion of your product as well. The NRS community does not have that anymore. And a lot of that is due to the painstaking reality that the chickens have come home to roost on what a terrible product NRS has put on the shelves. They've not learned a damn thing from anything or anyone. And it's really painful to watch the fact that the company responsible for making the game that really, molded a lot of our childhoods that we love to play, love to support. It really hurts to see that, with them being obviously tethered to WB and, whatever decisions might come of that arrangement, of that venture, it hurts to see that they are lagging behind all of their contemporaries as badly as they are. And Mortal Kombat 1 has done nothing but reinforce that that's not changing anytime soon. Look at the case in point. Look at the amount of top players that have come and gone in Mortal Kombat's competitive history that have either just hung it up ever since MK11. MK11 retired a lot of players. MK11 retired a lot of top players all around the world because folks did not like the way that they went from what they had going in MKX down to the absolutely watered down formula that they've had ever since MK11. And like it or not, whether you like the new formula of the way NRS is making these Mortal Kombat games or not, it's not improving upon the quality of life of the community because the community is dying and not growing. I mean, back in MK11 when the game first came out in 2019, I believe that Mortal Kombat tournament, I believe that combo breaker had over 1,000 entrants. And then that Evo would become the most attended Evo of any Evo for Mortal Kombat ever in 2019. 2023, East Coast Throwdown, only 299 people signed up for that tournament for Mortal Kombat 1. UFA in France didn't even eclipse 200. Let that sink in for a moment, man. Mortal Kombat went from getting over 4 digits in its first tournament in Mortal Kombat 11's release with the amount of hype that came behind that game to getting to a point where the next game after that doesn't even have half of those numbers between 2 different events in 2 different parts of the world that were part of a NRS/WB sanctioned Pro Kompetition esports circuit. If that doesn't showcase to you that the developers, all the folks that are responsible for Mortal Kombat as we know it, if that doesn't illustrate how badly they have failed, nothing will. A lot of folks are liking to say that there's going to be a lot of time to get the game right, that they still have a lot of faith in NRS in order to get the game right, and then actually in order to put it in a position where it can actually salvage some goodwill if they make improvements to the game, because they like the gameplay of this game, which if a lot of the folks that say they love the gameplay of the game as much as they do, then it's very sad to see, you know, just how meaningless their support really is in the great scheme of things, because of the fact that, well, that Mortal Kombat 1 is not even in the top 8 of registrants in its own backyard. And you can obviously say that I might be harping on that, but UFA and East Coast Throwdown told no lies. They told absolutely no lies. And the sad part is there are a lot of players that are up and coming players in the community that are putting in a lot of bones to really get their names out there, and they're doing it at probably the lowest point in the NetherRealm community's history. In the sense that they're playing a game that the community and the fan base really does not care about. Before I came live tonight, I noticed that Mortal Kombat 1's numbers as far as streaming were concerned, not even over a collective 2,000 viewers. And unless you get certain players to go ahead and stream the game, platform-wise, whatever the case may be, even if you had, like for like, the strongest players in the NRS community all deciding to stream Mortal Kombat 1 all at once, compared to all the major heads over in Tekken, over in Guilty Gear, over in Street Fighter, it would still pale in comparison. And then obviously, if all the Smash folks start streaming all at once, well, we all know how that's going to work. Okay? So, collectively speaking, in terms of improving upon the community and actually being an improvement upon what we once knew as the pinnacle of the NRS community during the time of MKX for Mortal Kombat, and then you could probably say for Injustice 2 for Injustice, but I try not to mention, anything Injustice related in general. But as far as Mortal Kombat's concerned, as the bell cow of the company, Mortal Kombat 1's not that guy. And considering the amount of work that needs to be done to bring that game up to where it should have been at launch, if the devs really did have quality control, actual testing, a la what Namco Bandai did with Tekken 7, taken into account, then it would have been a different story. But considering the situation right now in reality, Mortal Kombat 1's not that game that's going to carry the NRS community back into prominence. And it's going to be a long time before any potential that's worth mentioning from this IP is dragged out to the point to where that status is going to change at all. There's just too much that needs to be done. There's just too much that they skipped out on. And like myself and a lot of other players have said ever since the game's release, it absolutely 110% needed to be in the oven for a whole nother year before it got put in shelves because of the things that they were trying to compete against. I mean, it might sound as if I'm really, bagging on the NRS the NRS community, NRS as a whole, but the truth needs to be said. At the end of the day, the truth just needs to be said. And lying to everybody that the game is fine, the game's doing well, that's just cope at this point. The numbers don't lie. Numbers never lie. Numbers do a lot of things. The one thing that they never do when all is important in the world, they never lie. And right now, Mortal Kombat 1 is in crisis mode, and it's going to be in crisis mode for some time. But man, I appreciate the support y'all have given so far here in the Streamcast. This Streamcast was nice to do. Feels good to be back in the Streamcast role. I'm gonna be doing a lot more Streamcasts coming up here in the future because I enjoy the podcast setting. I enjoy getting all of my thoughts out there, and I hope you guys enjoy everything that you're hearing. Of course, if you're brand new to the channel, I appreciate your viewership. Please follow along on the stream, like, follow, subscribe on the YouTube, and leave a comment. Of course, I appreciate all of your comments, and I look forward to responding to as many comments as I possibly can. And yeah, I appreciate all of you guys for the major support you've given the channel over the years here in the StarDock. It's always been a pleasure to run the events. In spite of my disdain for this game, personally and competitively, in spite of my disdain for this game, I will look to see if I will be able to put anything together for it from a competitive standpoint, because I just enjoy watching the homies compete, level up, even if, I'm not a part of that process. So thank you so much for everybody for viewing. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I hope every one of you guys had a brilliant holiday season, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next cast. And I will definitely let you guys know in the Discord, on Twitter, when those will be. But yeah, as far as Mortal Kombat 1 is concerned, I don't know if I can say I'll be streaming the game from a gameplay standpoint too often, because for me, the game reminds me way too much of MK11, and that's just more than enough for me to understand when it's time to just put the controller down. But anybody else that enjoys the game, let me know. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'd really love to know exactly what y'all's headspaces are when it comes to this game as a whole. So yeah, I'll enjoy reading everything that I can from the YouTube. I'll enjoy reading all the archives here. I'm seeing from folks saying that the game is bad. I'm seeing you guys saying the everything that I've said confirms that MK1 is not a good game right now, and the things they've had to compete with. I mean, and that MK1 should have released in Q1 of 2024. No. MK1 should have released in Q4 of 2024. This game was lacking polish. I mean, it needed more than polish. I mean, there's only so much you can polish. You can polish a turd all you want. It's still a turd. Unfortunately, the game is just... Unfortunately, the game was just rushed. It was after that call that leaked out telling everybody that Mortal Kombat was going to be coming up on the horizon. It seems like they've been in rush mode ever since to try and get ahead of the curve and trying to, save face, but all they've done is make it worse. They were reactive instead of proactive, and what that's done is get them to essentially shortchange themselves and shortchange the player base with what should have been an A1 product from the start, but unfortunately they didn't give themselves an A1 chance to put that product on the shelves and to have its true capability realized as it should have been. Because aside from all the gameplay criticisms and aside from all the other areas that you can nitpick at, the game is gorgeous to look at. It's gorgeous to look at. I don't like the way that they've done the business practices, obviously, as I've mentioned before, with the way they've done the cost of all the content, how tedious it is to grind for the content, and for that matter, the cost in the sense that for even supplemental items that come along once in a while is in the content. I don't like what they've done, but the game is gorgeous to look at. Graphically speaking, it's gorgeous to look at. I'll put it out there also that I don't like what they did with certain characters, with the way they reined in a little too much in proportions in certain areas and all that good jazz. And I don't like the way that they've really constricted what was once the we don't give a you-know-what kind of a franchise. I don't like the way that it's really gone away from that identity, because everybody will tell you when they go back to games like MKX, MK9, that that's Mortal Kombat. That's what makes Mortal Kombat Mortal Kombat. The last two titles have kind of gotten away from that, and that's another thing that I'll definitely say from a personal level I don't like. But as a whole, I'll enjoy continuing to give my opinion on all this as time goes on. And yeah, from my perspective, what they need to do in order to get this game up out of the mode, or out of the mud, I should say, what they need to do is to really just redo the product from a very generous stance. They really need to just redo the whole thing. Yeah, make an ultimate version and actually take their time with how they're going to do all this. Because look at Fortnite, for example. Fortnite has reinvented itself, and look at Apex Legends. It's reinvented itself like crazy over the course of its entire existence since 2019, and it's still going as strong as ever. Fortnite is still going as strong as ever. And then obviously, as far as fighting games are concerned, Tekken 7 has reinvented itself so much over the course of the years, and it still remains as class as ever to watch. I mean, these guys are literally out there marketing the finals venues and marketing the ticket sales and marketing the ways in which people support those games from an esports standpoint. They're marketing all of that to the point to where you look at that model and you're sitting there thinking there's no reason in the world Mortal Kombat and NRS shouldn't have a stage like that that's sustainable year in and year out for the competitive community. But unfortunately, due to the malpractice of development, the support the game's gotten from a communication, a development, and for that matter, the community. Because like I said, the community is not totally innocent in any of this either, in the sense that for those that always love to shill Mortal Kombat 11, Mortal Kombat 1, a lot of the top players for that game don't usually go unless there's a bag involved. And as mentioned before, esports has had an impact on our community to where that's the way things are. I hinted on it earlier in the cast where I said, you know, you've got guys that'll just stay at home and they'd rather run a bag restreaming the events rather than go out there and potentially waste money, even placing high, going through all the strain and the stress that a tournament puts you under in order to make money that's going to evaporate before you even touch down back in your home state, if you live in the States, or in your home area and wherever you live in the world. I mean, you have folks that when they were restreaming the likes of ECT, restreaming the likes of the online events, the online community run circuits, that have had more support and more communication put into them than anything that NRS has run at all, period. As far as Mortal Kombat is concerned, when you take all of that into account, we are where we are. And then you take into account a lot of top players over the years have retired, and it's now gotten into the hands of these new age Mortal Kombat players, these new age NRS players that are now considered the top players of the community. I mean, the onus is on them to support the game, whether they want to support it online, offline. It's up to them. It's up to them. But at the same time, if you're spoiled by online playing, you don't go offline, and then you start wondering why your game doesn't get all the support that you really wish it gets, well, the onus is on one person or on one entity to take the responsibility from that after that point, and that's on the community to showcase how much you love the game that you say you champion. And that's the crazy thing about a lot of shills. A lot of folks that don't travel or don't show their face or whatever the case may be, I mean, you can't really say you feel sorry for them when the game dies and it's the only game that they're good at, but they're only able to show those skills online and don't take the time and take the affairs in order necessary to actually get their faces out there and support the game on a much more meaningful level. That being offline. So, hey, support your locals, support your events. I mean, I'm not going to be playing in Texas Showdown this year. I'm not playing the MK1 in Texas Showdown this year, although I will say this much right now. I'll still be making an appearance because, like I said, support your events. Support whether they're in your region, your area, whatever the case may be. Support your event. All right, support your event. But yeah, at the same time, there's just so many reasons as to why the game is not doing anywhere near as hotly as folks would want. And unfortunately, you know, even for this Streamcast, there's just too many of them to name, just all told. Yeah, so, yeah, as time goes on, we'll obviously have more Streamcasts because, like I said, it feels good to be back. It feels very good to be back. And I can't wait to have more Streamcasts as time goes on. We'll discuss tournament results. We'll discuss results of the Pro Comp. Might even restream some events. You'll never know. Like I said, when it comes to my time traveling and going around for tournaments for Mortal Kombat 1, unless MKX is involved for me, I'm generally not going to be competing that much anymore when it comes to the way New Age Mortal Kombat looks, unless they give the overhaul of a lifetime that actually makes the game worth playing. In my eyes, I don't know if I can say I'm going to be going back to it, but you never know. Tekken 8, I'll be looking into getting the game competitively and finally playing the game competitively. I finally have all the time in the world to look into KOF 13. I've always loved that game ever since I was in college. And who knows, I'll with it getting the remaster that it's getting, you never know. I'm definitely wanting to see what I can do there. But as a whole, as far as the Streamcast for tonight goes, it is a close. So thank you so much for joining along, folks. I appreciate y'all. I will be I'll be touching up on some more details on all this on the next cast. And I can't wait to have you guys in here for that as well. I appreciate y'all. Big ups. Enjoy your night.